Monday afternoon to you, 4 o'clock, time for Sports for CLE. Hope you're having a good day. Browns got what they needed, a win. It wasn't pretty. They get their 9th win, an inch closer to guaranteeing themselves a spot in that AFC playoff picture. Still hanging on to that 5th spot. Remember, the division winners get the top 4 spots. Kevin Stefanski first in the locker room yesterday, then reflecting on the win today.
I told you last night what I say. Whatever it takes. That's this fight in this locker room. That's the fight in this locker room. Like, did we do a lot wrong today? Hell yeah. But fought for 60 minutes. We needed all 60 of those minutes. I'm so proud of this team, guys. We're not perfect, all right? We're not perfect. It's tough. It's going to be hard. But this team fights, and that's number 9. Okay, so now you got 9. Okay, you got 3 more opportunities in our kick. 3 more opportunities in our kick, but you got 1 today. Okay, talk about that defense. 3 takeaways, fellas. Fight, right? Fight. Talked about a guy last night. That guy showed up today. 10 catches, 104 yards, and a touchdown. One of the best teammates that I know, who fights for his team, number 85.
Hey, man, I love all y'all boys, man. It's going to take all of us. It's going to be a long journey. We got this. We got the right men in this room. Let's get after it, right? 1 play at a time, 1 day at a time. Let's keep going.
That's this game. It's going to be hard sometimes. You have to fight with each other, but I saw a bunch of guys out there that are like, I will not be denied for my brother, for the guy next to me. I appreciate that. Team on 3. 1, 2, 3.
We're very proud of the effort. Proud of the guys that came in both during the week and then in the game to step up for the team. I thought was outstanding. Defensively, really so much good stuff out there. They had that 1 field goal drive. And then I know we can play a little bit better at the end of each half, but man, there was some really dominant defense out there for a vast majority of the game. Then offensively, just to come through in that 4th quarter, we needed it. Joe made some big plays down the field to the guys, and again, made plays when we had to make them.
So welcome in Scott Petrak, Browns beat reporter from the Elyria Chronicle Telegram, as well as brownzone.com. When you look at it, Scott, I mean, you kind of scratch your head and trying to figure out how they won the game. But you know what? That's the kind of game good teams find a way to win.
Yeah, I mean, when they're down 10 in the 4th quarter, you're not thinking they're going to win. But it's not that hard to figure out how they did it. Their defense held the other offense at 3 points all game. And the quarterback threw for 212 yards in the 4th quarter. And your kicker makes all his kicks. It's probably not the easiest recipe, certainly not to execute. You need a bunch of things to go your way, but that's how they did it. And, that's how they've done it a lot of the year with the defense playing really well. And it's Joe Flacco figuring out a way at the end too. So, yeah, I think for most of that game, I thought they were going to lose, and then they didn't.
Joe Flacco talked post-game just about rebounding to get that win, as well as, throwing 3 interceptions during the game.
Believe me, part of you wants to crawl into a hole somewhere and hide from everybody, but it's just not. You can't do that. Especially somebody like me. I mean, I've been in this league a long time, and you've seen so much happen. You just have to keep your eyes on what's next. You have to continue to look forward and continue to, have faith that your teammates are going to, get themselves in the right positions for you to get the ball to them. It might not happen, and today it just happened to work out for us. And like I said, I don't think enough can be said about how well our defense played with all the turnovers that we had and the little amount of points they let up.
So how did it clicking in the 4th quarter for you, Joe?
Oh, listen, I mean, I think when you look at it, we just got a few chunks, and then guys made really good runs with the ball. I feel like they did a pretty good job of keeping us underneath of them all day, and we were trying to take like little bits at a time, but we were allowing. They were aggressive. They as soon as they saw the ball thrown, they were breaking on things and making us go the long hard way. And then late in the game, we started to get some chunk plays that we definitely kind of thrive on. When we can get those going, then we're a good offense.
Scott, I know you wrote an article, how you finish and Joe Flacco's fourth quarter. Take us through that and just what impressed you.
Yeah, just I guess the fortitude to come back from those 3 picks, and you would expect it, like you said. I mean, he's 38, he's been in the league forever. So it's not like I thought he was going to go into a shell or not be able to come back, but it's still impressive that he did. I think it's important to remember that it's interesting because I thought 2 of the interceptions might not even have been his fault. The first one, I thought Cedric Tillman should have broken in front of the safety, and he keeps running down the field, just throwing right to the safety. The second one goes off Tillman's hands, probably should be a catch. It turns into a pick 6. But there are also a couple other throws where I thought Flacco could have been intercepted. So he obviously didn't have his best day early, but he's such a good thrower of the ball that there's always a chance for him to string these plays together. And we talk about explosive plays a lot, and that's something the Browns focused on getting better at from last year to this season. And when you have those explosive plays, whether it's 57 yards to Marquise Goodwin that leads to a field goal that starts the rally, it's 51 yards to Amari Cooper and he's gone for the touchdown, it's 31 and 34 to David Njoku on the last drive, and it leads to the winning field goal. Those plays make it so much easier to score, right? You can put up with a false start, put up with a negative run play because you have a chance to have huge plays. And Flacco's arm and accuracy downfield allows the Browns to do that.
Yeah, and it gives you a chance against, and I'm not saying they're going to win the Super Bowl. I'm not saying they're going to win a playoff game. That gives you, those big plays give you a chance against a team that is better than you, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, or at least more consistent offensively, right? Like, Browns have a good defense. So, like, this is a recipe that, and I'm thinking about writing a story. Who knows when I'll get to it. A lot of stuff going on. But is this sustainable? And I think that's been a question since Flacco showed up against the Rams. Is this sustainable? And now seeing it for 3 weeks, yeah, it's sustainable. Like, the protection hasn't been great. The run game hasn't been great. Yet, he's still throwing for a bunch of yards. They're still scoring enough points. He's got enough movement in the pocket, outside the pocket, that he's not a sitting duck. So, yeah, I think this is sustainable. And I don't know if it's 6 out of 7, 5 out of 6, 7 out of 8, something, that Joe Flacco's thrown for 250-plus in that number of starts. I think it's, let's say, 6 out of the last 7 starts. Now, that spans a couple of years, but still, the fact that you throw for 250-plus consistently, it really says something about who he is as a quarterback.
So this is kind of interesting as well. Definitive argument for Kevin Stefanski as the coach of the year is from Tony Grossi. 8 teams have 9 or more wins in the NFL this season. 7 of them have had the same starting quarterback for all those games. The Browns have had 4 starting quarterbacks. I mean, let that sink in, to be among the league's elite with 4 starting quarterbacks.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that work in Kevin Stefanski's favor, and that's, if not the top of the list, it's right there at the top of the list. You know, we talked last week about winning a game with 4 different starting quarterbacks, and that's impressive. But then to compare that to the rest of the league when, and I think this is true throughout history, or at least recent history, if you got your quarterback and he stays healthy and he plays all season, you got a good chance to win a bunch of games. And when you don't, that's when things can go a little sideways. So the fact that the Cowboys and the Niners and the Eagles, and you go down the list, have just played their guy, it just makes everything so much easier. You know what an uphill climb it is? Replacing a quarterback once, let alone 3 times. So you do that, you pile on all the other injuries at key spots to key players, and you know, the argument for Stefanski gets better and better. All
right, and along those lines, this from ESPN's Dan Graziano, judging the biggest overreactions from Week 15 of the NFL. Kevin Stefanski should be front runner for the Coach of the Year. His verdict, not an overreaction. This award tends to go to a coach team that exceeds its preseason expectations. You have to tip your cap to the way Stefanski has held things together in Cleveland. Right now, he's winning with Joe Flacco at quarterback in the year 2023. Scott, I know you wrote an article, so I want to dovetail into that. Kevin Stefanski just seems to keep pushing the right buttons. Take us through that and kind of your thought in that article.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And there's so many different facets, David. I'm sure I'm going to forget some. But we can start with play calling, which, may not even be his biggest strength. And I know people like to nitpick, but I think he's done a great job play calling. And that coincides with the quarterbacks. He's given all these quarterbacks with limitations and a variety of different skill sets, all giving them a chance to win. And not only a chance, they've won. He's won with them. So his play calling can't be ignored. The fact that he sets the tone for the backups to be ready. I think he does a better job of that than some of his peers do, right? Like, I've never seen the same emphasis on getting the practice squad guys ready, getting the backups ready. The assistant coaches all talk about it. So it's the setting the tone, it's the attitude, then it's the execution of the coaches have everybody ready to play. It's hiring the right coaches and Jim Schwartz and Bubba Ventrone as coordinators. It's improving the team chemistry with trips to the Greenbrier and Philly in the preseason and LA during the season. I think all of these combine to give the Browns the record they have and a chance to win despite all the adversity.
Scott Petrak, Browns beat reporter for the Elyria Chronicle Telegram, as well as brownzone.com, and I going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. We'll talk a little bit more about quarterback play. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Holiday gold! The $20 scratch off?
It has 100 times multiplier. I could win $1 million.
Psych! I got merry and bright.
No fair.
It has a 200 times multiplier. I could win $2 million.
Game on the back.
Game on the back. Game on the back! Game on the back! Game on the back! Game on the back! Game.
We continue talking Browns with Scott Petrak, Browns beat reporter for the Elyria Chronicle Telegram, as well as brownzone.com. Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason for the first time today.
Hey, love the show. Just have a quick question. Everybody praises that Joe Flacco's the quarterback that Kevin Stefanski wants for his offense without trying to say we need a quarterback controversy or any of that. I guess what I'm asking is, do you think they got the wrong guy then? Because I feel like they're total opposites. You know what I mean? Just like to hear your guys' opinion. Go Browns. Woo, woo, woo.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Scott, I don't know about you. He's referring to Deshaun Watson, obviously. Watson's 5-1 as a starting quarterback, so I just keep that in mind this year. Didn't get to start more than 3 games in a row. I know fans don't want to hear it, but we probably don't know the answer to the question of what Deshaun Watson can be with Kevin Stefanski just yet.
Yeah, that's fair to say. I do think it's an interesting point because it feels like Stefanski is more comfortable with the under center play action quarterback. And that's not who Deshaun Watson is. Having said that, I think Stefanski embraces the quarterback that can make the off schedule plays. He's gotten creative with the, whether it's the zone read and the quarterback keepers. Like, I think as a play caller, you appreciate that, and it opens up what you can do. In fact, everything doesn't have to be perfect. Your protection doesn't have to be perfect if you have that kind of running threat as a quarterback and escapability. So I think there's probably a best of both worlds where you can run a lot of stuff under center, you can run the play action, but you also have that running threat. And, I think the goal is that Deshaun Watson can do that. We just haven't seen that, and I don't think he loves the under center stuff, so it is a kind of an adjustment for Kevin Stefanski. But I do think he can win with both. But I think it's fair to say he's more comfortable with the Joe Flacco type of quarterback because that's who he had in Kirk Cousins and Case Keenum and even Jacoby Brissett and Baker Mayfield.
When you look at it, there isn't a guy that was like that has as high of a ceiling as Deshaun Watson, which is probably why they decided to go. You're looking for the elite. You're looking for a ceiling. And Joe Flacco's been great. He's not the long-term answer. He just isn't.
Well, yeah, he's 38 years old, right?
Right.
Like a Justin Herbert, right? Like, he reminds me of Flacco. He's big, he's tall, he throws, but he also can get outside the pocket and do stuff. Like, I think that's the ideal quarterback. Joe Burrow, has those capabilities. I don't know how much play action Lamar runs. I know he's good from the pocket. He's making great throws this season. So it's that kind of a hybrid quarterback. But I would say, if Stefanski, not that he said I wouldn't want a Deshaun Watson or I wouldn't want a Lamar Jackson, but if you said, okay, what's the perfect quarterback for you? I think it'd be somebody that, was more of a Herbert Burrow that threw first, ran second, but could do both.
All right, so the question becomes, and I know you got this in your mailbag, at what point do you think they look for a different long-term quarterback?
Yeah, I just think it's way too early to even go there. And I get it. Like, I get the questions. I get you're winning with Joe Flacco. Deshaun Watson hasn't been here for a while, but they're tied to him. I mean, he's only 2 years into the 5-year deal. It's all fully guaranteed. From a cap perspective, you just can't move on from him. And I don't think they'd want to. I don't think they'd admit after 2 years and really two, incomplete years, right? I mean, a suspension year one. This year he gets hurt twice. So, they're not going to make that move and take on all the criticism they took and pay what they're going to pay, trade what they traded, and say, yeah, we're done with them after 2.5 years. So I think he gets all of next year, assuming he can stay healthy. And then you can start to talk about an exit strategy if it comes to that. But, obviously their hope would be that he plays great, he plays out the contract, and you sign him to an extension.
And keep in mind, the last time he was on the field, he engineered a second-half comeback against the team that's likely or currently the number one seed in the AFC and beat them at their place. So
he's had his moments, right? He just hasn't been maybe as consistent, right? Maybe hasn't looked as clean as it has with Flacco most times.
Yeah, that's fair. All right. So Brian Baldinger with some analysis on Joe Flacco's game-tying touchdown to Amari Cooper. Pay close attention to this one.
Joe Flacco and the Browns just keep winning. On this play, the Browns are down 17-10. 3:18 to go in the fourth, and there's Amari Cooper's going to come across on this deep cross right here. And Joe Flacco's going to roll a little bit to his right, and he's going to put it right on Amari Cooper. And he finishes it 51 yards into the paint to tie the score up. When you watch the play, they're going to pull the left guard, Michael Dunn. He's going to be there to just protect the front side. Little play action fake, drag slide concept right here. Now Flacco's got time. And there comes Amari. Watch this throw by Flacco. Was he doing this to his brothers in Audubon, New Jersey? Was he making those kind of throws on a high school field in South Jersey 2 weeks ago, a month ago, whatever it was?
It's got that last angle you saw. There were two defenders that were both a step and a half away from it, and it was right in Amari Cooper's hands.
Yeah, it was kind of a triangle of Bears guys there. I saw a tweet right before we started, Dave, that out of Chicago, where Matt Eberflus, the coach of the Bears, said they should have intercepted that. I don't know which guy he's thinking. Maybe he thought the corner should have gotten back in time, but I think the throw was just too good.
Yeah.
We talk about tight windows. That's a tight window. I had somebody text me today saying, do you remember a better throw by a Browns quarterback? And, it's tough. I've thought about a Baker throw when he hit Landry against the Panthers at the end zone. There were a couple guys closing in. It was a real good throw. But there haven't been whole lot better than that. And then for it to turn into what it did, lead to the win, it's right up there. And that's just who Flacco is. And we've seen it, maybe not to that degree. Well, we've seen tight window throws since he came back, or since he started for the Browns.
Again, I know this is from your mailbag. What do you think about the wide receiving core? Do you think does it get overhauled? Does it get tweaked? And then Amari Cooper, I can't imagine a scenario where he's not back just based on what he's meant to this offense.
Right? I mean, I agree with you, and it's hard, and we talked about it, and it's hard to nitpick about roster spots or roster deficiencies when you're 9-5 and you're kind of winning with smoke and mirrors. It's like, okay, we're really going to focus on, what the receiver core looks like. But I get it. We saw Cedric Tillman play a big role yesterday. I think he let Flacco down on a few of those passes, but they have no choice, right? He's like the number 2/number 3 guy. Is that too high for him? Maybe, right? If you're a Super Bowl contender, can you do better than Cedric Tillman as number 2, 3? Yeah, maybe you can. So it's an interesting discussion. Here's what I think, that heading into the year, I think the Browns thought as an organization, either this is Amari Cooper's last year because he's due $20 million next year, or there's going to be a big restructuring of his contract. They think Elijah Moore is going to take a big step up and be a number 1 or a high-level number 2. Well, right now, I don't think how you can move on from Amari Cooper unless you have some other great plan to bring in a number 1, because he's so valuable, and it's a huge drop-off from him to whoever else you have. Elijah Moore certainly hasn't established himself as a number 1. He's been fine. He's a player in this league. He's got decent numbers, but he hasn't been a difference maker. And then it's Cedric Tillman, right? And then it's David Bell. So there's going to have to be depth additions, but it wouldn't surprise me if we saw Cooper, Moore, Tillman come back with just some tweaks and some depth added, because I think the front office likes who they have. And like you said, Dave, I just can't see him moving on from Amari Cooper, whether that's pay him the $20 in the last year of his contract or extend him to bring down the cap figure. He's just been too reliable.
All right, so Peter Schrager from Good Morning Football talked about a message Kevin Stefanski had to the team involving David Njoku Saturday night. Stefanski we heard him hint around it in that post-game message.
The night before the game, at the team hotel, Stefanski sat everyone down and brought up David Njoku and said, this guy right here represents everything we want to be. He's tough, he's formidable, he's humble, and he is our guy, and let's follow him. They go to do introductions out of the tunnels. The last person introduced yesterday was David Njoku. Who had the biggest game of his career yesterday?
Yeah.
David Njoku was amazing when they need. And it's like, you talk about late blossoming and late bloomer. Njoku was a first-round pick, and they pick up his extension. They're like, all right, we'll do one more year. And I'll tell you what, he is unstoppable right now, and he has been Flacco's guy. And you look at this team, he is representative of everything. I mean, think about what he went through already this season in week 4 when he was at the fire pit, and we know what went down there. And yet, every single big play, it's this guy right here, this warrior. He's incredible. You want to talk about a team that you don't want to face in the playoffs. We talk about the Bills.
No.
Do you know who the best road quarterback in the history of the NFL is in playoff history?
Flack.
It's Joe Flacco.
Oh,
it's Joe Flacco, not Joe Montana. It's Brady and Flacco as the most road wins.
All right. Don't let him in.
Look at all those guys.
That's impressive.
Flacco, you don't let Flacco in a road playoff game. He'll come and he'll gut you.
Scott, I didn't realize that about Joe Flacco. I mean, it's pretty impressive. Anytime you're mentioned in the same breath with Tom Brady, anything NFL playoff related, that's pretty elite.
Yeah, he's got 10 postseason wins, and 7 of them are on the road. I don't know if that counts the neutral site Super Bowl that he won. If that's 8, if he's only won 2 home games or not. But yeah, I knew that he had won a bunch on the road, and it's going to come in handy a couple weeks from now when I'm writing about the Browns going somewhere to play that opening playoff game, right? But yeah, the Njoku thing, it's such a good story because, I know I had given up on him plenty of times. He's not worth it. He wasn't worth the draft pick. He wasn't worth the 5th-year option. He wasn't worth the extension. And at the time, I felt pretty strongly about a lot of that. You could see the talent, you could see the potential, but it wasn't realized. And it just took a while. And I guess maybe that's what happens when you draft a guy when he's 20 years old. And he had a bunch of coaching changes, right? It just took a while. And, a lot of teams get criticized for their patience and sticking with their guys, but you can't criticize Andrew Berry for this one. They knew that if they stuck with it long enough, David Njoku would be a top whatever tight end in this league. I think it's certainly a top 5 tight end. He's got incredible physical talent. He really has matured, I think, as a person, as a player, as a leader. Stefanski can't talk enough about what a teammate he is. And, it's interesting. Stefanski does, he'll pick the game captain. He'll introduce a guy last. And part of that, there's always a reason. And I think part of it is when he knows that the guy's going to have a big role in the game. And there must have been something in that Bears defense where Stefanski said, hey, Njoku's going to have a chance to catch a ton of balls. And he did, and it paid off.
Scott Petrak from the Elyria Chronicle-Telegram, as well as BrownZone.com, and I are going to step aside, take a quick timeout. We head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason, talk a little defense. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Scott Petrak from the Elyria Chronicle-Telegram, as well as BrownZone.com. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hello, this is John from Sandusky. The Browns had a 5-year plan with Kevin Stefanski. So it's the 4th year of the 5-year plan. We've been through a whole lot of bumps, bruises, 4 quarterback, everything else. But the 5-year plan, it seems to be working. The Kevin Stefanski theory is pretty much proven right. We got the right coaches on offense. We got the right coaches on defense to get through this whole season, beat the hell up. So I appreciate everything that Kevin's doing. I just had to say that. Thank you for your time. You guys have a blessed day.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Scott, a lot of people have kind of, the defense is really good, so credit goes to Jim Schwartz. They're overlooking the fact Kevin Stefanski is the guy that brought in Jim Schwartz.
Yeah, that was a big-time hire, right? You can group Bubba Ventrone in there.
Yeah.
Special teams have gotten better. If you're going to ding Stefanski for hiring Joe Woods when he got the job, then you got to give him credit for hiring Jim Schwartz. I'm sure it wasn't just Kevin. It was an organizational decision. Andrew Berry and Captain Ray should work with Jim Schwartz in Philly, but, Stefanski has to approve that. And the guy with a big ego and a big personality and a big resume, and Stefanski took that on and hasn't looked back, and it's been a huge boost. And it's not like Stefanski doesn't have any role over there. He's in on all the meetings of who they should get and the players they should get and the schemes that they run and how they're going to, attack a team and all that stuff. So I think it'd be unfair not to give him any credit for what the defense is doing.
All right, so a guy that played pretty well yesterday, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, showed up quite a bit. Brian Boldinger, former offensive lineman, breaks down some of the plays of JOK yesterday.
Let's just key on Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. Watch him defeat this block, jump cut, bam, and then explode to take down Herbert right there. And DJ Moore's going, how am I supposed to block that guy? He's a cobra. And he is. Just say it after me. Watch this blitz. He recognizes the back protecting, so he's green dogging right to the shoulder of Justin Fields. It's Koramoah. That's where he is. You watch him right here on this sack, and you watch him come off the edge. Koramoah. You can't stop him. Justin Fields, all he can do is just hold on to the football. Please, help this man up. He's having a hell of a day, as he has most weeks. Here's Hickman going. All right, look. 3rd and 18. Just make him punt. Just let him catch it. Here he comes. You got 2 offensive linemen coming out to block you. But this is Koramoah. Bam, down goes Johnson. And then you get this right here. Here he comes. Right at Justin Fields. Final 2 minutes of the game. Just slippery. Bam, right to the shoulder and the arm of Justin Fields. And the ball, maybe it had a chance to Darnell Mooney if Koramoah didn't get to him first.
Scott, Jim Schwartz has figured out how to effectively use JOK.
Yeah, he has. I think there's a lot of reasons for JOK's ascendance this year. And one of them is surely the scheme with Jim Schwartz, right? He's freer, there's less double teams, all those things. And that can't be overlooked. I also think time helps. JOK, it took him a while at Notre Dame to get comfortable and to become the player he was when the Browns drafted him. And I think it's been the same way here. He had a couple injuries his first 2 years, so they weren't complete seasons. He's really an instinctual player, and sometimes that works against him. But the more comfortable you get, you slow down. So I think it's all of it. I think it's having and he said this today, JOK did, it's having a better defensive line in front of him, right? They keep guys off of him, which makes it easier for him. But you can't undersell the improvement that JOK's made himself, because I think he's making a lot of good reads. Not all good reads. Like I saw one yesterday where right after the play he knew he'd screwed up and he said it to one of his teammates, like, my bad kind of thing. But he's playing so aggressive. He's getting in the backfield a bunch. He's a good blitzer. He's so fast. So yeah, I think that's big. We talk about Grant Delpit getting the extension. JOK's kind of in that same path of second round pick, struggles a little bit early, starts to turn it on. You would think that he would be a foundational piece moving forward.
The other guy that it was impressive, Ronnie Hickman. So got the start because the secondary, the safeties in particular, are banged up, and he got an 86.4 coverage grade versus the Bears. Was also one of the higher graded defenders overall. What did you think of Hickman and the way that secondary played, especially the safeties?
Yeah, I mean, the fact that I didn't really notice him, I think, is a good sign, right? Kind of like your offensive lineman. It wasn't like the guys running past him, beating him for a touchdown. I had concerns about that. Justin Fields has a big-time arm, and he threw some deep balls yesterday. They got lucky on one drop pass, but it wasn't a Hickman. It was Taki, the linebacker, in deep coverage. But I didn't, it's like I noticed Hickman on any plays going, oh, he's out of position. He showed up. He showed up the week before when he had to start kind of late last minute for Juan Thornhill. Had a big breakup in the fourth quarter. So, yeah, he's shown up. We talk about getting into your depth, and that's one of the spots where they are really into their depth. I mean, Hickman opened the year as like number 4, right? Him and D'Anthony Bell were 4 or 5. They both start. Deron Harmon's, was on the Bears to start the season. He was on the street, and he gets signed when Rodney McLeod goes down. So, for the defense to play at the level it did yesterday, right? And we know we've already discussed how well it played. Both backup safeties. You don't have your starter middle linebacker and Anthony Walker Jr., who's also the signal caller. You don't have Obo. You don't have Maurice Hurst II. Denzel Ward's a part-time player yesterday. I mean, geez, they're doing it with guys that you wouldn't expect them to do it with.
Yeah, and you know what? They're going to need to continue doing it because I don't think a lot of those guys aren't going to be back anytime soon. Scott Petrick and I are going to take one more time out. We'll head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason and talk a little bit more about the Houston Texans, who are up next for the Browns. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program is dedicated to recognizing exceptional students, teachers, and schools throughout Ohio. Scan the QR code on screen to nominate students and teachers as Academic All-Stars and Teachers of the Month. They must be currently enrolled or teach in grades K through 12. Is your K through 12 school developing students' literacy skills to achieve success in reading? If so, you can nominate your school for the School of the Year. Students can win $100, teachers can win $500, and schools can win $2,500. Scan the QR code, fill out the forms, and nominate deserving students, teachers, and schools today. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program takes pride in honoring exceptional students, teachers, and schools across Ohio. Submit your nomination today. It's fun, fast, and free. We continue talking Browns with Scott Petrick from the Elyria Chronicle Telegram, as well as brownzone.com. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hi, Dave. Howard from Marin County. Great show. Yes, we're all in seventh heaven with the win. I think Flacco is better than Deshaun Watson. And I also think that Kevin Stefanski and Mr. Berry should be awarded a long-term contract. My question to you is there's obviously a huge number of players on the IR that are very expensive. My question to you is which of these players would you not bring back, and what would you focus on the draft? For me, I would probably try to revamp the offensive line. Great show. Thanks a lot. Bye.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. So, Scott, looking ahead at that, it's probably you got to find out how healthy guys are before you determine whether you bring them back or not. I'm still kind of with you. Don't forget, they do have Alex Leatherwood on the practice squad. He's kind of banged up, former #1 pick. Depth on the offensive line, I still look at that wide receiving core, and you need another weapon. But you're not picking. There's no first-round pick.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, receiver jumps to the front of my mind. Then you just wonder, are you too young there? Can you count on a second-round pick right away? I think that's a question you can think about. But yeah, I mean, receiver, I think depth along the offensive line. Maybe get younger linebacker, somebody to go, to join JOK. Taki and Walker are both on one-year deals. Depth across the defensive line, younger there. But a lot of it's depth. It's youth, an infusion of youth. We could argue about receiver, but besides there, it doesn't feel like there's a lot of gaping needs across the roster.
No, and this is kind of the window where they expect to be, at this point or even better next year when they think about it. So you don't want to, if you're contending for a Super Bowl, you don't reshuffle the deck unless you have to, and they've been smart enough with the extensions and the salary cap, they shouldn't have to reshuffle the deck.
Yeah, not too much, right? You might have to, maybe you get rid of a Shelby Harrison, you draft somebody else at D-tackle, or, you hope Ika takes that step up, right? Or, you let Zadarius Smith go and you hope Alex Wright and, Obo and Isaiah McGuire take that next step, right? You got to figure out that balance between proven guys and young guys, and sometimes the salary cap makes that decision for you. But yeah, I think you're right overall, and we've seen, how many times do we need to say, we've seen the value of depth and talented depth and experienced depth this season across the roster.
All right, so this is from CBSSports.com. With their win Sunday, the Browns become the first team since 1950 to have 4 different quarterbacks lead them on game-winning drives in the same season, which, when you think about that, that's pretty amazing. 1950. Very different game back in the 50s.
Yeah, those quarterbacks might not have made any throws on those winning drives. It kind of goes back to what we talked about to start the show, right? Just the resilience, the good play calling. You got to give the quarterbacks credit, right? Like Deshaun Watson didn't win that Ravens game in a vacuum. He made a bunch of plays to win that game. Joe Flacco made a bunch of plays. P.J. Walker made some plays in his comeback wins. And DTR against the Steelers made enough plays, right? He hadn't done anything, and he made a couple of those throws on that winning field goal drive. So, it all came together at the right time for those guys, and it speaks to the general attitude that it's different, right? You're used to thinking, okay, the Browns aren't going to pull this out, and they certainly don't think that way at all this year.
All right, so up next, the Texans. This is the current AFC playoff picture as we look at it. You got the Ravens, the top seed, only 3 losses. And then the division leaders, it goes Dolphins, Chiefs, Jaguars, 2, 3, and 4. Browns are 5. Now, down there, same record as the Jaguars, 8-6, the Texans. So this game against the Texans is one of those crazy ones, Scott, where it almost counts as 2 because if the Texans end up making the playoffs and don't win the division, tiebreaker against the Browns, it's head-to-head.
Yeah, especially if it's just the 2 of them. It gets complicated to the 3rd team or 4th team. But yeah, it's huge. All these AFC games late in the season, and the Browns finish with 3. They're all big. They're all important. The NFL hasn't put out its list of who could clinch this weekend. So I don't know if the Browns win. I don't know if they can clinch this weekend or not. I still think 10 gets them in, however you get to that number 10. But it could affect seeding, right? If it's them and the Texans wind up being tied. So yeah, it's a really important game. It's going to be tough. We don't know who's quarterbacking for the Texans yet. If it's C.J. Stroud, he's having an unbelievable year. I think they're going to be fired up in Houston because that team has come out of nowhere. Nobody expected them to be this good. DeMeco Ryans might be the favorite for Coach of the Year or one of the favorites. So, yeah, it's a tough game. It's a game that at the beginning of the season looked like, oh, the Browns will go down there and Christmas even win. And I certainly don't think that right now, that it's an automatic win by any stretch.
So Case Keenum was the quarterback for the Texans in their overtime win yesterday against Titans. C.J. Stroud still in concussion protocol, again, early enough in the week that, he could get out of it and get cleared. But again, not practicing. We'll see how quickly he comes back. Will Anderson, really good edge rusher, wasn't able to play yesterday for him. Nico Collins, one of their top receivers. When you look at it, Texans are a young team. What are some of the keys to this one?
Yeah, they're certainly beat up, right? You mentioned Collins. They're without Tank Dell. So we don't know exactly how they look because it's been the last few weeks where they started to lose some pieces. But I'll tell you what, to go into Tennessee and to beat a disciplined Mike Vrabel team yesterday with Case Keenum is impressive. We know Case Keenum can win games. We've seen him do it here on short notice when he filled in for Baker. So, I think they're just a well-rounded team. I don't think they wow you in a bunch of different areas. They're still on the, like building, right? They're not established, they're still building. But, yeah, I just think they have enough pieces that's why they have 8 wins.
Scott Petrak, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Scott.
Thanks, Dave.
Scott Petrak, make sure you check him out. Brownzone.com on the internet. You can also check him out, pages of the Elyria Chronicle Telegram. Always really good Browns coverage. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. Ashley Bastock from the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Straight ahead, we continue talking Browns.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
Holiday gold! The $20 scratch off?
It has 100 times multiplier. I could win $1 million.
Psych! I got merry and bright.
No fair.
It has a 200 times multiplier. I could win $2 million.
Game on the back.
Game on the back. Game on the back! Game on the back! Game on the back! Game on the back!
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve. Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams, I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
This is Charles Boykin from Dayton, Ohio again. With all the injuries that we've had and all the players that we have acquired and all the all-pros that we've lost, the most important acquisition that Andrew Berry has made, and the person without him, we would not be 8-5. They give a lot of credit to the quarterbacks and all the other ones, but it's D-Hop, our kicker. Without our all-pro kicker, I'll call him all-pro, we would not be where we're at now. And it was the right D-Hop. The Browns would not be 8-5. Go Browns!
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Let's welcome Ashley Bastock, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Ashley, there's a laundry list of most important acquisition. I certainly won't argue with D-Hop, but I wouldn't argue with Joe Flacco, or there's a number of them.
There are a number of them, but to that caller's point about, the Browns wouldn't be 9-5 without D-Hop, I think that's exactly right. My colleague Mary Kay Cabot actually wrote a column about that last week when the Browns were still 8-5 before their win yesterday. And it's so true. I think he's kicked 4 or 5 game winners now. He's still perfect from 50-plus yards out. I said yesterday, we've come a long way in terms of we're not having to talk about Dustin Hopkins a lot, right? Like he's just going out there, he's doing his job, he's making his kicks. When there is that mistake, he finds a way to correct it and bounce back. And I think that's what good kickers do. But the way he's kicked in clutch moments for this team, this isn't just a good kicker. This is like Pro Bowl caliber kicking by him this season.
So Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah had a pretty good afternoon, if you will, against the Bears. 6 tackles, 2 TFLs, a sack, a quarterback hit, a couple passes defended, an interception. He showed up. Number 6 looked like he was all over the field. JOK talked about what's enabled him to have the success he has this year.
Definitely first praise go to the defensive line for some of those plays, really all of the plays, really. I think that the defensive line is our engine, and the way that they are able to press the ball and reset the line of scrimmage allows us as linebackers and the safeties to really fill those holes and those gaps. Not only that, but praise is due to Coach Schwartz for putting us in the right positions. Calling the blitzes when we, want to attack, making sure that people are in the right places with the right personnel at the right time. So I don't think it's so much me. I'm not just that type of guy. I would rather give those credits to other people. And it's not just a sense of being humble. I think that it really does revolve around those people. If Coach Schwartz doesn't call that play, I probably won't be able to be in that position. If the D-line doesn't press, and reset the line of scrimmage, then I got 3 guys in front of my face. So.
And Ashley, they've kind of found a way to highlight his skill set.
Yeah, I'm actually working on a story about JOK right now that'll go up tomorrow at cleveland.com. But, I think it's interesting because to me this season, it's like Jim Schwartz has finally found a way to unlock him in year 3 in a way that I think is how the Browns always envisioned he could be used when they had him pegged as a first-round talent in that 2021 draft that they got really lucky but still had to trade up to get in the second round. You look at yesterday, according to the PFF snap count data, he lined up on the D-line 11 times. He was in the box 39 times. They used him at safety 4 times, at a corner spot twice, and in the slot 6 times. And that, to me, just kind of follows this larger trend for his season. You look at where his snap counts are. Yes, most of them are in the box, but really, I think he's lined up on the D-line now almost 90 times for 90 snaps. This is how they always wanted to use him. But I think overall, the defense as a whole has been playing so well, and each unit has been doing its jobs, even through some of these injuries that they've had recently, that it allows them to kind of take advantage. And I think what he's so good at is we know how athletic he is. We've always known that. But in this system, it's so much reading and reacting for the linebackers that's when his natural skill set comes into place here so well.
So I know you also wrote an article, no shortage of unlikely heroes in the Browns' win over the. Take us through that, and who are some of the guys that really popped in your eyes?
Yeah, I think you look at that win, obviously Joe Flacco was so amazing in the fourth quarter, but they also had these guys who were thrown into different positions, step up and make plays when it counted. I talked about Cam Mitchell getting his sack. I still think that was a run stop after watching it, but they gave him a sack, so I'm going to credit the rookie with a sack there too. That set the tone in the fourth quarter, right? Of course, there was DeAnthony Bell coming up with the ball on that Hail Mary interception, which DeAnthony Bell is a guy who he's been a core special teamer the last 2 seasons, doesn't get a ton of defensive snaps, but was thrown into the fire this week because the Browns are still without Juan Thornhill as he deals with his calf injury. We know that Grant Delpit is done for the regular season after he had surgery on his groin. They're still hopeful they can get him back, but DeAnthony Bell went out there and showed, hey, I can still hang out. I've been doing the work. I don't want this train to stop, I think was what he said last night. So he's another guy. Alex Wright had a big fourth quarter play, a big strip sack in the first half. Those are just some of the guys. Even like Luke Whippler coming in after Nick Harris had to come out in the fourth quarter. Didn't miss a beat at center for them. Of course, Michael Dunn, who he's a veteran. I think when Michael Dunn comes in the game, you still expect him to do his job, but still, he wasn't expecting to have to play on Sunday as much as he did when Joel Bitonio went out. I think you look up and down the roster and you can find other examples of guys like Mahmoud Diabate coming up with a big fumble recovery for this defense. And all throughout this team, you can find those examples of these guys who maybe don't have a lot of experience, maybe went undrafted, maybe haven't played a lot of snaps, like a Siaki Ika, who was active for the first time yesterday and played a serious number of snaps in this defense. Guys just want to keep what this defense has, keep chugging along with it, no matter who's in the game. And Greg Newsome, I think, said it best, that the difference between the Browns and other NFL teams is everyone says next man up, but the Browns actually believe in that next guy when he subs into the game.
All right, before we go to break, Joe Flacco was unbelievable in the fourth quarter against the Bears. So 11 of 13, 212 yards, a touchdown, no interceptions, passer rating 144.4. So the 212 yards passing in the fourth quarter, the most by any Browns quarterback in a quarter over the last 45 seasons, according to ESPN Stats and Info. I knew he was good. When you put it in those perspectives, and some of the throws were like, and it was just me. It looked like it was going to be a rough game for him in the first three quarters.
Yeah. I mean, those first three picks, or the three picks, I should say, that he throws in that game over the first handful of quarters. It's like, okay, this is the Joe Flacco experience. He's going to come back down to earth. He's 38 years old. We know he's already prone to interceptions. But this is what you get when you have a former Super Bowl MVP. He can kind of pull himself out of those situations in these key moments. And that throw to Amari Cooper, the 51-yarder, in real time yesterday, and especially now after having watched it back, that's like not just maybe the highlight throw of the Browns season so far. That might be a top 10 throw in the NFL this year. I mean, that's not even fair that he's 38 and could still sling it like that. I think when they signed him, we had some questions of, okay, can this guy does he still have some 200-yard games left in him, 200-yard passing games? He had a 212-yard quarter yesterday. I think he answered the questions. But yeah, I mean, it's like, to put it into perspective, when I saw that 144.4 rating for the fourth quarter, I had to double check the Browns notes to make sure I read that right, because it's just so unexpected for a guy to get a rating like that.
Especially with the game on the line. So again, that's one of the things you get with a guy who has been Super Bowl MVP. The moment, not too big.
No, I think that's exactly it. And Marquise Goodwin talked to me yesterday about the thing about Joe Flacco is he's never too high or too low, which I think people know about him, right? Like, you compare his and Kevin Stefanski's personalities, like they're very similar. And Browns fans, of course, know what Kevin Stefanski is like in year 4. But what's so interesting about that, Marquise said, is that it rubs off on everybody else. So, like, if there's a mistake, if Joe throws an interception and those guys on the sideline don't see Joe beating himself up or panicking, that rubs off on them. Then they don't panic. And if they make a really good play and Joe's not overly excited and celebrating like they just won the game, then they don't get like that. You do tangibly see it kind of happening like a ripple effect on the sideline and in that locker room. And just the impact he's had on this team already, the way he's been able to step in on a close-knit team, I think is really a testament to him, too.
Ashley Bastock from the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com, and I are going to take one more time out. Other side of the break, we'll turn our attention a little bit more to the Browns-Texans game coming up Sunday in Houston. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Holiday gold! The $20 scratch off?
It has 100 times multiplier. I could win $1 million.
Psych! I got merry and bright. No fair. It has a 200 times multiplier. I could win $2 million.
Game on the back.
Game on the back. Game on the back! Game on the back! Game on the back! Game on the back!
We continue talking Browns with Ashley Bastock, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Jason McCourty, a former defensive back in the NFL, on what he has seen from the Browns with Joe Flacco at quarterback. This from the NFL Network's Good Morning Football.
late in that fourth quarter, the veteran stepped up and he made throws. You saw the fadeaway pass that he threw to David Njoku and the one to Amari Cooper. And that's what a veteran-led quarterback can do for your team, coming in here, and we know how good the defense is. When you say, can they continue this, my only concern is Flacco in 3 games has thrown the ball for over 40 times. This is a team led by their defense. That is the strength of the team. I don't know if that's the recipe for success for them moving forward, getting into the playoffs, is just continue to throw the ball time after time. This year in the NFL, teams are 33-71 when they throw the ball 40-plus times. The Browns are figuring out ways to win the game. I'm not hating on that. Joe Flacco's been unbelievable. But I think they have to figure out a way to run the ball a little bit more and lean on Myles Garrett in that defense. But just watching Joe Flacco straight from the crib to go out there and just throw the ball around the field has been so fun to watch. 38-year-old. I played against Flacco many a time. So to think now I'm sitting at this desk talking about how he's out there balling is fun to watch.
Actually, I think Kevin Stefanski would love to not throw the ball 44 times, but the run game, they averaged less than 2 yards a run. I think it was 18 carries, 28 yards. That's like running into a brick wall and expecting something other than to bounce off of it.
Yeah, they still have, I think, something to figure out in this run game. I mean, I do think a big part of it is, like, you look at what they're running now, right? The offense is very different than it has been for most of the year. They're basically running Gary Kubiak's offense from 2014 that Joe Flacco excelled in. And Browns fans, of course, have seen this before, right? This is basically what Kevin Stefanski ran for Baker Mayfield. It's basically what he ran for Jacoby Brissett last year. The difference in those seasons was the Browns had a guy by the name of Nick Chubb out there leading their rushing game. So I think this, to me, is arguably the point of the season where they miss Nick Chubb the most. But it's not just about Nick. It's also about the offensive line at this point. I think that has just as big of a part to do with this run game kind of falling apart a little bit. I think they can still get it back. But you look out there yesterday, they were down to their third center at one point. Wyatt Teller was the last man standing in terms of their starters. They've lost 3 starters at tackle. They're down to tackles 4 and 5 now. And that's a tough assignment. That's tough for this, unit, even though Bill Callahan is a wizard and a magician, like those guys always talk about. I think both of those things, losing Nick Chubb and all of the offensive line injuries, have a huge part of that game. And yeah, I mean, it's not ideal, I think, in those conditions to have to throw the ball 44 times. But the good thing about Joe Flacco is because he's a gunslinger and has that mentality, he can still move the ball down the field. And I think we saw that that's not always a given, right? It wasn't with DTR in some of those starts this season. So that is definitely where Joe gives them a leg up, I think.
And again, they'll try big personnel. They'll try to figure something out, but clearly it wasn't working. And Kevin Stefanski, to his credit, realized Joe Flacco throwing the ball 40 how many ever times was going to give him the best chance to win. And it proved out to be the case against the Bears.
Yeah, and I think there is something to the you don't want to outsmart yourself, right? And if it's bad weather, yes, running the ball is going to be effective, even though people expect it. But I do think there is something to that, and kind of giving them a game plan that looks a little bit different. And yeah, I'm curious to see how those like jumbo packages kind of evolve for them, especially depending on what's going on with Nick Harris. He did come back in that game, but of course Nick has been there in that fullback role. If you look on the Browns roster, he even has center/fullback by his name now. Kind of a cool story there. But when he has to play center, that totally changes up how those packages look, and you lose something there too that has been super effective all season. It changes things all around the line for Harrison Bryant, everyone. So I definitely am curious to see what that's going to look like going forward, depending on if Ethan Posta can come back, if Nick Harris is hurt, and all of that.
So the game against Texans is an important one, an AFC team currently a game behind the Browns. So if they beat the Browns, same record, they'd have the tiebreaker, assuming they don't win the division. The one thing that jumps out, Texans are +8 in the turnover differential, 4th best in the NFL. Browns -7, 5th worst. And again, had a bunch of turnovers against the Bears. What are some of the keys to the Browns getting the win? And getting a win would be 10, which is where everybody thought they needed to be.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just that, right? The turnovers, the takeaway battle has been, to me, their Achilles heel all season. I do think ultimately, even though I'm very high on this team right now, I think everyone thinks they're making the playoffs at this point, me included. I think they could make a playoff run that people aren't expecting, but what could ultimately be their demise is ball security and not taking care of the football. This has been their problem since week 1. They've lost the turnover battle in 9 games, I think, at this point. 9 of 14 games. It's either 9 of 14 or 10 of 14. It's amazing that they have a winning record with numbers like that, because you have to take care of the football in the NFL. Now, Joe Flacco is prone to interceptions. We know that about him. So I think you kind of got to live with those, but take care of it in just about any other capacity and force them to turn the ball over. Take advantage of, we don't know what's going on with CJ Stroud yet. He is still in the concussion protocol. I do think it's promising that they see him, that he was doubtful for last week's game and not ruled out, but take advantage of going against a rookie quarterback and make him make some mistakes, since you are the best defense in the league.
Ashley Bastock, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. As always, appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Ashley.
Thank you.
Ashley Bastock, make sure you check her out. Really good stuff. Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. It's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We will see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports for CLE.